2 years. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so.
Okay.
And this is not like a cut go, it's really up to you.
Okay.
I'm on this side in this angle because you're the light.
Can I get my good angle on?
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Do I introduce myself? Okay, I didn't know you were going to ask a question first. Okay. Hi, my name is Renee Farrell, and I'm a resident here at 12 Neighbors, and I've been here for just 2 years now. Actually, in June, it was 2 years since I got the keys and was able to open the door to my own home for the first time in my life. And I'm very appreciative and grateful to be here. And before I was here, I was living in, I know I looked at you that time. I moved here to New Brunswick originally from Newfoundland. That's where I was born, and I came to New Brunswick about 10 years ago. And now, the reason why I came here to New Brunswick was to seek rehabilitation for drugs and alcohol. I was living a very hopeless, destructive, self-sabotaging lifestyle before then. And before I came to New Brunswick, I was very, very close to death. I was 100 pounds lighter than I am now. And I can laugh at that. So I was pretty much, as my grandmother would say, I was like death warmed over. And, you know, my liver was failing. I was jaundiced. I had, disease in my liver. And my organs were shutting down. But something, I'll call it my higher power, my God, I needed, I just trying to think. Sorry.
It's okay to talk about this, because again, this documentary, I'll pause.
Just pause
This
over.
documentary is about you.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what makes you special? What makes you special? It's your belief in God.
Yeah, I believe in God.
Talk about it. Shine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did have an answer to your job description.
Yeah.
You would say you are commercial cleaner, commercial cleaner at 12 Neighbors, and you are a mentor for the residents.
Yeah, hostess. Well, hostess and hostess.
See, but
Okay. Is it still paused?
Huh?
It's still paused? Are you still paused?
I mean, this is right.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's still right. Okay. I'm just trying to think of like what I wanted to talk about, like from Newfoundland, like what was my life like back there. Like, if you had to ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I certainly wouldn't have said I wanted to be an addict or alcoholic. But unfortunately, that was my way of coping with things that have happened to me in my life. And I was trying to fill a hole in my soul, basically. And since being here in New Brunswick, that hole in my soul that I was trying to fill was a God-shaped one. Now, I didn't know that 9 years ago before I came here, because like I said, when I came here, I was so hopeless, so close to death. I didn't know if I was going or coming. I was, like again, I said, I was like death warmed over. And so I came here to go to a rehabilitation center for women. And I had been to 5 other rehabs. Nothing ever worked. Nothing stuck. I wasn't getting, it was just band-aids, just a little time of sobriety. No real success, I guess you could say. So the treatment center that I came to go here was out in Tracy. And I didn't know a whole lot about it other than that it was a Christian rehab. And I was out in Tracy, New Brunswick. I didn't know where Tracy, New Brunswick was. And it was a year-long program. So that was, to me, the big difference as opposed to the other programs that I went to. It was longer, and it was all women, because I usually would end up dating someone and thinking I was finding Mr. Right in the rehabs. Never works out very good. And so out there I was able to have an experience. For the first time in my life, when I went up there, a lady asked if she could pray with me. And I grew up in a Catholic home, very active in my church. I served on the altar, I read lectures, I taught Sunday school a bit, and really enjoyed reading in church and even singing in the choir before I was smoking. But, I knew who God was. God was up here. He wasn't in here where he resides today. And God was up here according to how well I behaved. So, I thought I was going to hell for having a tattoo. I thought I was going to hell if I stole the cookie. And thankfully, I know that's not true today. And so when the lady, Chris Ornstein, prayed with me, I remember closing my eyes. And again, like I said, it was the first time anyone ever prayed with me, for me. And closing my eyes because, like I said, I was living a very hopeless lifestyle. I didn't have any hope. And if you asked me to tell you one good thing about myself, because I remember quite clearly when I was being admitted there, we could say, they asked me to tell some strengths about myself. And I really honestly couldn't tell you any of my strengths. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, did not believe there was any good thing about me. I had lost 2 of my children while I was in Newfoundland. My dad and my stepmom, they care for my son right now, who's 17. And I have another daughter who's adopted. And so losing them, losing my job, because that's reality of addiction. It takes everything from you. And so when this lady prayed for me, I remember closing my eyes and just holding her hands and just having her pray with me. And then I opened my eyes after, and the room was so bright, and the light that was just in the room was like something I've never ever experienced before in my life. And the warmth in my heart, a sense of hope that I felt that I didn't even know existed, was something that just stirred my soul when I knew that the hole in my soul that I was trying to fill with drugs and alcohol and food and sex and men and shopping and that hole in my soul that I was trying to fill was a God-shaped one. So out there at the Sarah Tracy Center, it was supposed to be a year-long program. Unfortunately, after 5 months of being there, 5.5 months or so, they decided to close down because it was lack of no funding. So I knew right then that I wasn't ready to go back to Newfoundland because of, you know, the lifestyle I was living there. And when they told me that they were closing down, thankfully, one of the counselors I was seeing, she suggested Liberty Lane because I was, and that was a program, second stage housing that they have here in New Brunswick for women that have gone through any sort of abuse. And I don't like to talk about my abuse and things that I've been through in those regards, things that, you know, I self-medicated myself because, you know, those things in my life have been healed, and I feel like I don't want to open up any wounds that have already been healed, because what helped me, and through my relationship with my higher power, he told me about forgiveness, and forgiveness is basically a big basis on why my heart is so full right now, because I was able to forgive the people that done me wrong in my life, and not to say what they did was right, but to say that I'm not going to let it control me anymore. Because, you know, as long as I was in active addiction, you know, because you did this and you did this and you did this, well, that's why I'm an addict. I could never really take full accountability for my own actions. And so when I was able to, you know, forgive them, and some of it was through writing letters and burning them, because I didn't have any access or didn't know where certain people were that did me wrong. So it's been a journey, and since that day out there, you know, unfortunately, that program closed due to a lack of funding. So after being in Liberty Lane for a little while, I met a guy, and anyway, I ended up relapsing and getting into a drug that I never used before, crystal meth, which is like rampant now. And I had used that drug right away when me and him got together, and then that took me on a bit of a spiral here. History started to repeat itself, and I got myself into the same situation as I was, you know, in back home in Newfoundland. I didn't get to stay at Liberty Lane much longer because we're not allowed to have men there, and well, I broke that rule. Anyway, so then I was on the streets here in Fredericton. I lived at the Oak Center for a little while, and then got kicked out of there because, you know, if you stay in active addiction, there's three places you'll end up, you know, jail, institutions, and death. But I had a really good fellowship here of people that were in recovery, so I knew who to reach out to, and, you know, even that was a bit of a journey. But to make things short, I was on the streets for a while here, and, you know, it gets pretty cold here in the Maritimes. And I was outside, and then I was at the Grace House for a little bit. And then they came to me with an offer for a tiny home, and I had knew of the 12 Neighbors community starting, and you know, I was very interested in it. But like anything, it takes a bit of a process. So eventually, I was. Well, I'm on a program here at Recap. I don't know if we really need to say that. We can cut that part out. But anyway, I feel like I'm really sweating now.
I'll pause here.
Yeah, let me just pause it for a second.
I want you to
I feel like I'm rambling a little bit.
You know what would be a good point, that's a point, is if you put those questions on that whiteboard, and then we can refocus on what the question is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I also wanna, I would say, like, I'd like to be in the interview because I wanna ask questions. Or how do you?
I feel like I'm kind of looking up.
I think if the questions were on the whiteboard, I think for myself, I'd be able to focus. But
Yeah.
what was it that you wanted? What are the questions?
I'm writing them down.
Yeah.
I work well with focal points, right?
Yeah. No, I don't take meds for my ADD anymore, so I do get a bit squirrely sometimes. And that's the thing, I think because I'm thinking so much about what I'm going to say, because I'm thinking, oh, if my parents see this, and like, there's abuse that happened to me that I didn't talk about, and like, that's kind of thing.
And I want to get you know. So,
Okay.
especially I want to know how you like how you felt during certain stages of your life, right?
Okay.
So, of course, so tell us about your life. Tell me about your life a little bit, but I really want to know how did Renee change? What is the hero's journey? You know, how did the hero struggle, and how that struggle made him stronger? How did he get stronger? What emotions were there during the process? So, starting off, you said you lived in Newfoundland.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what I'm wondering is, what was your life like in Newfoundland, and how did you feel, like growing up? Yeah, what was life like growing up in Newfoundland, and what feelings were involved growing up as a child?
Growing up in Newfoundland, well, I'm sure like everybody here, it can get cold. But, you know, my parents split up when I was 3, and I was back and forth my whole life between my mom and my dad. I did really well in school, and, you know, I had lots of friends. But when I was probably about 14, I got experimenting with drugs and alcohol first, actually, and it was just very easily accessible, and probably hanging out with the wrong crowd, that's probably where it started, but to me, like, starting drinking, I guess it was a way of numbing things that were going on inside my head. And I think secretly, probably from a young age, I probably did deal with, you know, a bit of depression because of things that had happened to me. And my alcohol first was a way of self-medicating. And so I graduated school, and like I said, I had lots of friends and everything, and got into a bad relationship early on, and he was a drinker as well. So at first it started off with alcohol, and so that was at the age of 14, and, you know, started smoking weed, and that's how it kind of started. And from there, like, while I was in high school, probably my last year, I kind of went a little bit downhill because I was starting in this relationship, and he was older, and, you know, it wasn't healthy, even though my parents advised me not to. I was the typical rebellious teenager, and I didn't want to listen to my parents, and so, you know, my parents and I relationship as a teenager was quite rocky, and like I said, I went from my mom's to my dad's, and, you know, I personally believe stability in any child's life and consistency is really important. So after high school, I didn't go to university right away or college. I just started working and babysitting and working at McDonald's, and and when I was 21, I decided to move to Toronto because I had moved to St. John's when I was 18, almost 19, started bartending. So living a lifestyle that made my addiction easy to hide, I guess. And so I moved to St. John's when I was 18 because around the Bay, like where I'm from a very small town. Everybody knows everybody. If you don't know what you're doing, your neighbor sure does. And so that the small town mentality kind of was never really for me. I valued, you know, the closeness of everybody. However, that did have its, you know, disadvantages as well. So I moved to St. John's when I was 18 and started bartending. And then when I was 21, I moved to Toronto to get away from the drugs, I guess, and alcohol, which was in Newfoundland. Yeah.
I wanted to stop it because I was scared it wasn't recording. I was like, what the hell? We're good? I just
Okay.
Yeah, so
when you were 21, you
oh yeah, I moved to Toronto, and up there I got into a very fast-paced lifestyle. That was quite a big culture shock, and a big shock to someone that's from a very small town. I moved to like Toronto, right? Very fast-paced, and got in with very wrong crowd up there. Got involved in some gang lifestyle, and you know, very gang lifestyle. And so my addiction, once I got up there, I got exposed to a whole nother world of drugs and alcohol and clubbing and men and other people that weren't, let's say, following a legal lifestyle, like, you know, drug dealing. And, you know, I started, you know, selling my own self, basically, while I was there. And
I'm curious what made you come here.
come here to New Brunswick?
Yeah, because you were in Newfoundland.
In Toronto, I know. I'm like a gypsy. I haven't been outside of Canada, but I've been in every province from here to Toronto. And it's funny, one of my friends, he says, I joke around, he says this saying, he's like, I haven't been to the States, but I've been in some states. And I was. So, yeah, so from Newfoundland to Toronto. So one good thing about me going to Toronto, though, was I did manage to go back to school. I went to college up there, and because I got pregnant. I got pregnant for my son, who's now 17. And then I decided I wanted to, like, I've always had passion. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always had a passion for, you know, being a nurse and being in the healthcare field. I'm sure I was playing doctors and nurses ever since, you know, as a little child with my neighbors and my dolls, probably dissecting my dolls. That little game Operation, that was one of my favorites. So I did go there, and I did the course for medical lab technician. And so while being pregnant with my son, obviously I was healthier then. I wasn't drinking or anything, so I was pretty excited, you know, because I was in a relationship with my son's father, and but I didn't really have stable housing up there. Like, I was kind of, you know, living with a friend here. Like, I never ever had nothing to call my own, really. Like, he had his own car, but, you know, we were couch surfing for a little bit up there and just living with one friend or another friend. Again, like nothing was my own. And a lot of different apartments, and that's why I love having my own home here. And so I went to school up there, and when I was pregnant, when I was 7.5 months, I decided to come back to Newfoundland. And so I came back to Newfoundland to have my son, and then I moved back to St. John's, and I was going to stay there, and I didn't, so I moved out around the Bay where my parents were from. Anyway, I have my son out there, and so him and his father, his father and I obviously kind of like split up for me to come back to Newfoundland because my parents didn't wanted me to come back to have the support of having my son, and anyway, that went okay for a little while, and then not long after he was born, he was about 4 months old, and I started working at the hospital out in Bjorn, where my parents are from, and I worked at the hospital there for like 7 years, and really, really enjoyed my job. I loved it, but again, those things that I had going on inside me, and the trauma, I guess you could say, the issues I had never ever dealt with, they started to arise again, and I got, I started getting really depressed again, and even as a teenager, I can remember, being depressed and, having, self-harming myself. I used to cut myself, and, just a way of an escape, all right? It was never like, some people would say, oh, it's for attention or whatever. I'm like, no. And for me, it was a relief not to feel the pain that was going on inside my head. And so I worked at the hospital for 8 years, and I got into a bad car accident and got prescribed pain medication, and got addicted because, that addiction part of my brain, that addict part of my brain, like I said, that if someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, I'd never say I wanted to be an addict. But and those things that were going on in my brain, those issues, they were never ever dealt with properly. So again, I went self-medicating, and the drinking turned to drugs, and I was an IV, nothing could ever satisfy me. The alcohol, the drugs, like nothing. I was always searching for something, and so I went into IV drug using because I went from one extreme to the other. I just kept getting harder and harder drugs. And so my addiction took me to the place of losing everything. I lost myself, I lost my son, I lost my job. I didn't know who I was anymore. I really didn't. My addiction had taken me to such a place where, like I said, I didn't know who I was when I was looking in the mirror. I really didn't recognize myself. And my mom, seeing the hurt, the times that she'd have to bring me to detox, and, my brother bringing me to detox. One time I remember very plainly my mom saying to me, she's like, Renee, this is not my daughter. She's like, that laugh that you used to have and that used to drive me nuts Well, I haven't heard that in so long. Thankfully today, she can hear me laugh again. But, because of all the consequences of my addiction, the depression that it led me into, I tried to take my life on more than one occasion. And so, obviously, I didn't succeed. I'm here right now. But that are the places that addiction took me. So I had seen my doctor one day while I was in St. John's, and she suggested to me, she said, have you ever thought about going out of province for rehab? And I'm like, yeah, I did, because the work where I worked, I went out of province to a rehab called Bellwood. And it was like, 5-course meals. You had your own psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, and it lasted 12 days. I got introduced to some other drugs up there, heroin, and so I started using heroin up there. And like I said, just got in with the wrong crowd. It's always, always searching. And so I never completed that program, and that was supposed to be a program that wasn't just a typical 21-day program. It was, I think, like 90 days. No, sorry. Yeah, I think it was like around 90 days. And it was supposed to not only deal with addictions, it was like for addiction and concurrent disorder. So it was supposed to, because I had been diagnosed with PTSD and, borderline personality disorder. And, they had me on so many different types of medication. I was on anti-anxiety, antipsychotic.
Was that before, that was in Newfoundland?
Yeah, that was in Newfoundland. Yeah, I had seen psychiatrists and that they were all trying to deal with my depression. And, they had me on, anti-anxiety, sleep medications, antidepressants. I was like a zombie. I couldn't feel anything. And I got to a point one day, and I was watching a movie, and it was really sad. And I was like, I can't cry. Like, what's going on? And so I knew then, someone was really off. So in Newfoundland, I went to see my doctor, my family doctor there. And so she suggested again, why don't you try to go, have you ever considered going out of province to rehab? And I said, I have, and I wasn't successful. And so she suggested coming here to an all-women's one, to a year-long one. And I thought about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going for a year. I'm not going to go and leave everybody for a year. But so one day I was there, and I was just sat in my apartment, just using, getting high. And I just looked out, and I remember it was just a bright day. And for a minute, I was like, and like I said, I'd grown up in church, so I always had belief in God. But I didn't know anything about Jesus, or I prayed for a second, and it was more of a cry out to God, and I was like, God, what should I do? What? And I said, I don't want to live anymore. This is not living, and I'm feeling so hopeless. And then I thought about my doctor again. I said, well, you know what? Maybe I could try this, go out of province. And anyway, so I went to my doctor and I told her, I think I want to do this. She set me out with a social worker, and within no time, from the appointment to the time that I left, it was like a month. And I didn't really have much time to think about when I made up my mind that I'm going out of province. Because like I said, I had gotten in trouble in the law, I wasn't doing things that, I wasn't raised like that, to be, going and stealing and from stores, and just I wasn't eating, and I had no care about food. All I lived for was to get high, just my next fix. And it was just such a vicious vicious cycle, up and down, because I was addicted to cocaine, heroin, benzodiazepines, alcohol, you name it. And then so I never ever tried crystal meth until I came here. That was, but so I was like, and that's all my life consisted of, just getting and using, trying to get the drug, and that's all my life was consisted of. And so I got set up, and they said, you know, I didn't have to pay to come here. It was covered, and like you'll get set up with that. And I was like, okay. So I had to fly from Newfoundland to Halifax to Fredericton. So I even, like I said, I didn't know, all my life consumed of was getting and using, getting high. That's all it was. It wasn't a life. And so then I got on the plane, and I had taken drugs with me. And when I got to Halifax, I used in the bathroom. This is why I believe so much. It was just my destiny to come here, because I used when I was in the bathroom, and I nodded off. I fell asleep, and I missed my flight. And apparently there was only like one flight coming out, so I had to wait till like 12 midnight. I didn't know, and apparently they were calling my name on the PA. You know, Renee Farrell, get to your plane. And anyway, I managed to get here. So a lady from that rehab came and picked me up at the airport. And when she came and picked me up at the airport, I didn't realize how long of a drive it was. So I was starting to go through withdrawal. And the thing is, when you're coming off of all those drugs, the withdrawal, especially the heroin and the opiates, was brutal. For 14 days straight, I threw up, and I was sweating and shaking. I couldn't even barely get up over the stairs. I couldn't walk. So it was on a Tuesday that I came here. I'll never forget. Because on Friday they had to call the ambulance to come and get me. I was in such a bad way, because even before coming, my organs were failing. I was yellow. So I went to the hospital. They kept me overnight, and then they released me to come back the next day. And they gave me a little bit of medication while I was there to help, but I was still back out in Tracy with not a Gravol, not a tongue.
New Brunswick?
Yeah, out in Tracy, New Brunswick. So yeah, so I never had not a Gravol, Tylenol, nothing. And so I went and
Wait, let's pause.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Water break.
Yeah.
Now you're starting the next. 'Cause we're still in Act 1 technically.
Okay.
So, but you're starting you're jumping into now. We are in Fredericton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made me leave everything and come here? Yeah, so that's where I'm trying to, what was life like? Let's first on. Okay.
So now you're here in Fredericton.
Yeah, now I'm here in Fredericton.
This part, we should maybe now jump into the more positive side.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've got a pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to be talking about my addiction anymore.
No, it's not. I'm not like reducing I'm just saying.
No, just how I feel. It's like, I just.
I feel like the audience, like at least for me, I have a pretty good idea of who Renee was.
Yeah, okay.
The struggles.
Yeah.
You grew up as a child, you covered that. You covered high school.
Yeah.
You covered Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back and nursing, which was very important. Because that will
Well, that's why I want to that's why I was kind of planting that seed there. Like, as a child, I've always wanted to go into the field.
that was excellent. And then you touched on you didn't know what God was. You didn't know who God was. If you're, like, not, you knew God, but not.
I didn't have a relationship, and that's the way, I didn't, because, like I said, I knew as a Catholic, like, they don't really, because the church that I go to now is a non-denominational church, and they talk more about Jesus and who Jesus was, and talk about, like, Jesus and God, and the Holy Spirit. I didn't know anything about the Holy Spirit. I didn't know nothing about talking in tongues and all that stuff. That was so...
And now we go into the next chapter of...
Okay.
She came to Fredericton.
Yeah.
How did you find out about 12? How do you find out about 12 neighbors? How do you feel when you got accepted in the 12 neighbors?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you exactly how.
And how, especially, I'm very curious about the first few months.
Yeah.
What that like? Because this is a completely new environment. Some people still do drugs there. Like, so how are they living in the first few months? But let's see. Let's start off with how did you end up here and how do you feel with it? Yeah.
Okay. Let's see that. Okay.
You're doing great, Renee.
Thank you.
You are. You're doing fantastic.
All right. Okay. So while I was at the Grace House, I was told about the 12 neighbors, and I didn't know anything about how to go about getting in here. So thankfully they educated me a little bit about that, and I kind of started my application. And so at Recap, where I'm on the methadone program right now, I had started my application, and so one day, the lady, her name was Willa, and I was just trying to think, sorry, I just...
You don't need to mention names.
Yeah, okay, that's why I'm just trying to... okay. So while I was at the Grace House, and I was told that it could be a long wait list. And while I was there, 2 other ladies had gotten in here, and those ladies are still here today. And I was really feeling discouraged, and maybe I'm just not going to get there, So then probably about 2 months after my best friend got in, a lady came and she's like, I have some good news. And I honestly, I didn't think that that's what it was. And she told me I got accepted into the 12 Neighbors program. Well, I cried and I danced and I sang. And she said she's never seen anybody have a reaction so happy before. And I just, because I've been living on the streets a bit, just to be inside was very, very exciting for me. And I was so overcome with joy knowing that I was going to have my own little house. And I remember when the whole application, well, not really the application process, but the whole, I guess, at that time it was Pastor Steve, everybody called him. Was he here when you were? No? Okay, he was, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, okay. You weren't here, okay. So he did the intake, I guess, of filling out all my information and just getting to know me a little bit. And he knew then that I was in recovery, and I'm so blessed that where he located me because it's, wherever you go, there's still going to be drugs and alcohol, and, I'm not trying to promote that here by any means, but he knew, because basically every 12 rows of houses, there's a different feel, there's a different vibe, and my neighbors, my direct neighbors that I have, were very quiet, and and anyway, yeah, so I got along with them. I didn't know them, and I've never been a shy person. So when I came, and my neighbor, Susan, she had balloons on my door, and she came over and was with her dog. And I love animals too. And here at the 12 Neighbors, there's so many other things. I heard one time in the rooms of AA that the opposite of addiction is not recovery, it's connection and community. And that's something that I have here because, obviously being away from all my family, it's hard sometimes, but I truly believe that I have another family here because out at the treatment center that I was at, that's where my relationship started with my higher power. As I said, when that lady prayed for me, I was able to feel a presence, a peace, a joy, a calmness, a safety that I hadn't felt in a long time. And then, like I said, that, trying to fill that hole in my soul with drugs and alcohol, that was a God-shaped one. And the God that I grew up with was a punishing God. He was full of wrath, not love. And love is something that never fails. It's patient, it's kind, it does not boast, it's not angry, it doesn't take any record of wrongs. And that's something, that gives me joy and peace today. It's that relationship that I have with my higher power, who I call God. I can, a part of my day now that I have my own home, prayer is something that was very important to me because it's a relationship that I have with my higher power. And, I talk to him like I'm talking to you now. He's my best friend. And he is a God that loves me and doesn't, and unconditionally. He doesn't, he, just like I've forgiven other people, he forgives me. And from the treatment center that I was in, from there I was able to establish a church that I go to. And that church has welcomed me with open arms. They have a lot of good programs there that I go to, like a Bible study and a prayer group. And I was able to meet a lot of people there and that truly love me and message me and say, Renee, how are you doing? And I feel like they truly want to know how I'm doing. And if they don't see me, they're concerned. And so being here now at 12 Neighbors, going to church, I'm able to do on a regular basis. But not only that, they have so many other things here that you can be involved in. Like Monday nights, we have our creative art night. And I went there a few months back and painted a picture for the first time since I've been about 6 years old. And it was really fun. Like, I really felt that inner child coming out. And sometimes that inner child wasn't always a good memory. So being able to create some good memories here. And I went, and we have a community garden here as well. And last year I planted some things for the first time. I haven't gotten around to it yet this year. And just getting my hands in the dirt and, trying to plant some carrots and peas and squash was really fun. And some other things that we have here, like there's trivia nights, and they have a wonderful get-together at Christmas where I love to dance. And so we had some live music there, and I got to, do a little dance. And that was a great time as well. Yeah. Who am I today?
Renee.
Who am I today? Yeah.
Renee, yes, that's sitting in front of me right now.
Right now, today, right now I'm working here. I'm working at 12 Neighbors, and before I started working here, I remember I was starting to get a little bit depressed again because I really wanted to be working again. Like, I wanted that dignity. Like, I wanted to feel like I was a productive member of society again. And I had some counseling with David, and and I remember praying for a job, and then one day Mindy comes to me and she's like, "You want a job?" and like, how good it feels even just to say, "Oh, I'm going to work today." Like, something that simple. And I know I shared this before when on our Discovery Days at our award ceremony, and that I feel more rich making minimum wage than I did making $30 an hour pretty much. And it's just I feel pride, like, not a egotistical pride, not a vain pride, but a pride in myself that, I can get up and go to a job because, a few years ago, nobody would have hired me. And today, I can tell you strengths that I have. I'm an outgoing person, I'm compassionate, I have empathy, I have a sense of humor sometimes. And, like I said, 10 years ago, when I first came here, I honestly couldn't tell you any good thing about me. I didn't know I had any strengths. And, I enjoy working, I enjoy keeping this place clean. And, that goal that I had since a child, of working in healthcare, and that passion that I've always had for working in healthcare, I'm able to see through right now because I just applied for school, and in January I start for the LPN program, and I'm 42 years old, young, not 42 years old. I'm 42 years young, and you're never too old to go back to school. I know many people a lot older than myself going back to school and continuing their education, and I've always loved to learn. No matter where I was at, I always loved to learn, and I always thrived for knowledge because knowledge is power, and and because I'm going to do that, that's another thing that makes me feel very proud of myself. And the love that I feel in this community has filled my soul with a joy and a peace and a comfort that no drug or drink or anything has ever been able to affect me in the same way. Oh God, that was what, hour and a half?
Renee,
Gosh.
that was so good.
Yeah.
That was freaking amazing.
Yeah, it was
I
sort of,
can just post it all.
yeah, no.
I